in the area. It's actually the same area as what we did yesterday, but this one is more directly connected with Guru. So today we'll speak a little bit more on the topic of Guru. The first 3 days we covered disciple. Do you remember what the 3 major headings for each of the topics for those 3 days were? What was the first day we did? What was the main point? Don't you answer. You had it all written down already. Don't you keep quiet. Because you know all 3 of them. So, someone, what was the first day? What was the main point that we were emphasizing?
We talked about the 3 adhikaris.
No, that wasn't the first day. No. Yeah, the inquiry. Yeah. So, but what would it be? What is that quality or that activity? Inquisitiveness. That was mentioned in the verse itself. Devotees should be very inquisitive about the subject matter of devotional life. Second day was
Trusting the authority. Trusting the authority. Trusting the authority.
Trusting authority. Is it? Was it?
Discrepancies of the disciple.
The disqualifications of a disciple. That one verse we mentioned there were 5 disqualifications. And what were they? Can we go through? Which? Yes, Vrishabhana. What's the first one?
Obedience.
Hypocrisy. Duplicity. Hypocrisy. What were the other 3? Familiarity. Unfaithfulness and disobedience, yeah. So these are the disqualifications of a disciple. And yesterday we talked about
The 3 levels of devotees as well as the 3 ways to interact.
the interaction with different categories of devotees, and also there was also another 3. There was 2 3s we did yesterday. What was the other one?
3 levels of a devotee:
Kanishta, Madhyama, and Uttama. Okay. So then we're going to go back over those. So these are essential. So today we're going to talk about the Guru. So this verse is fundamental to that particular subject. From Srimad Bhagavatam 11:3:21. Can somebody remove that thing? It just gets in the way. Okay, there you go. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Tasmad Guru Prapadyeta. Jigasu Shreya Uttamam. Sabde Parecha Nishnatmam Tam. Brahma Upasraya Srayam. Tasmad Guru Prapadyeta. Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. Sabde Parecha Nishnatam. Brahma Upasraya Srayam. Tasmad Gurum Prapadyeta. Jigyasu Shreya Uttamam. Sabde pare cha nishnatam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Brahma upasrayasrayam. Somebody?
Tasmat gurum prapadyeta. Tasmat gurum prapadyeta. Jignasu shreya uttamam. Jignasu shreya uttamam. Shabde pare cha nishnatam. Shabde pare cha nishnatam. Brahmanya upashamashrayam. Brahmanya upashamashrayam. Tasmat gurum prapadyeta.
It's not Brahma ye, it's not Brahma ye, it's Brahma you pasrayasrayam. The Y connects with the U. Brahma you pasrayasrayam. Yeah. Of course, you can say Brahmani upasrayasrayam if you want. It's also correct. Both ways. Anyone else?
Tasmat guru prapadyeta.
Tasmat gurum prapadyeta.
Jignashu shreya uttamam.
Jignashu shreya uttamam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Brahmanyo Ashramashrayam.
Brahmanyupashamashrayam.
Any of the men?
Tasmad gurum prapadyeta.
Tasmat gurum prapadyeta.
Jignasuha shreya uttamam.
Jignashu shreya uttamam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Brahmanyu pashmashrayam.
Brahmanyupashamashrayam.
Anyone else?
Tasman guru prapadyeta.
Tasmat gurum prapadyeta.
Jignashu shreya uttamam.
Jignashu shreya uttamam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Shabde pare cha nishnatam.
Brahmanyupashamashrayam.
Brahmanyupashamashrayam.
Okay, we'll go to the translation. Therefore, any person who seriously desires real happiness must seek out a bona fide spiritual master and take shelter of him by initiation. The qualification of a bona fide guru is that he has realized the conclusions of the scriptures by deliberation and is able to convince others of these conclusions. Such great personalities who have taken shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, leaving aside all material considerations, should be understood to be bona fide spiritual masters. We can go to the purport. According to Sridhar Swami, the word Sabde refers to Vedic literature, Pare to the personality of Godhead. The bona fide spiritual master must be deeply experienced in authorized Vedic literature and practical understanding of the personality of Godhead. Without scriptural knowledge and practical realization of the personality of Godhead, a so-called guru will not be unable to dissipate the doubts of his disciples and therefore unable to execute the function of bringing a sincere student back home, back to Godhead. The symptoms of realized understanding of the Vedas and Krishna is upasrayasrayam. In other words, the bona fide spiritual master is one who has retired from the glittering illusions of materialistic society, friendship, and love. Omagyan timirandasya gyanajana salakaya chaksun militam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakte Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaudavani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavari Pastyatya De Sutarine Vanchakalpa Tarubhischa Kripa Sindhu Vaevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaho Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So there are many characteristics which define a bona fide spiritual master. And this verse emphasizes one of the more important ones. And that is, he must know the scriptures and he must be able to convince others of that same knowledge. So that is one of the qualifications of the spiritual master. His job, or his service to the Supreme Lord, is to bring others to the platform of devotional service. And through that platform there is the principle of knowledge. And therefore knowledge carries with it many categories within itself. There is knowledge of our identity. There is knowledge of the practice of devotional service. And there is knowledge of the personality of Godhead. These are just three of the many categories of knowledge, but these are the three essential ones. Krishna covers that in the Bhagavad Gita, in the very beginning. He tells you who you are and who you're not, by making a very clear and elaborate description of the difference between the body and the soul, the difference between material and spiritual, the difference between what is eternal, what is temporary. So for almost 25 verses, Krishna wants to make a point before he gives the actual knowledge of the process of bhakti, that you have to know who you are, aside from who you're, that body that you have. All of our identities is related to the body, or the extensions of the body, family members, society, country, friends, activities that are related to the body. And these are all ephemeral, or what you might say adopted identities, which are temporary. They don't really describe the individual. Our real identity is Jiva Subai, Krishna and Nityadas. We are a pure spiritual being, and we have an eternal occupation to serve the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. And that's the first principle of knowledge. And that knowledge is foundational for understanding others. Other knowledge, without getting at least a theoretical, conceptual understanding about the idea that I am not this body, all of the other knowledge that comes by way of Shastra and Guru will be hard to understand, or practically impossible to understand. Even if we haven't realized we're not this body, we should at least know theoretically we're not this body. And sometimes that takes a lot of time and energy to really go deeper into that subject matter. That's why Krishna took so much time, at least in the beginning, before he instructed Arjuna in the practice of bhakti. He gave him his identity first, who you really are. He didn't tell him who he was, he told him who he was not. Later on, he told him who he was. But in the beginning, he told him who he's not, because before you can tell people who you are, you have to tell them who they're not. Because they might have two identities, what they're not and what they think they are. And that will be confusing and not able to clarify. Therefore, we have to know that we have a body, but we're not the body. And that's one of the main principles that the spiritual master teaches. In that song that we sing every day, Guru Vandanam prayer, Chakshudan Diloye Janme Janme, Prabhu say, Dibya Gyan, Hriday Prakasita, that verse, Dibya Gyan. Dibya means transcendental, Gyan means knowledge. And Prabhupada says, what is that Dibya Gyan? You belong to Krishna. You are an eternal associate of Krishna, and you are of the same quality of Krishna. In other words, you're a spiritual being. That's the Dibya Gyan, that's the main principle before we can actually understand the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his activities. We have to have a clear understanding. So devotees should question and get a clarification on how to come more and more to the realization that I am something different than what this world has identified me as. So that's why Krishna put that first before he gave any other knowledge. Of course, then there's knowledge of the process of bhakti, and that is made up of three things. What is that knowledge? The knowledge of sambandham, relationships, abhideya, the activities of bhakti, the 9 angas of bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Aswavam, Kiranam, Smartam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam, like that. The 9 process of devotional service is called abhideya. And the goal is prayojana. What is the goal? Prema pumartha mahan. To develop or to awaken love of God. So that makes up all Vedic knowledge, those 3 categories. But then there is a higher principle of knowledge, and that is, who is Krishna? What is the nature of Krishna? What is our relationship with Krishna in terms of our identity in relationship to him in the spiritual world, and all of his activities that he performs with his devotees in different leelas and different incarnations. So these are the 3 main categories of knowledge, and there's also subcategories within the category. The spiritual master has to know all of this, because people will ask questions or even challenge, and then the spiritual master must be able not only to be able to speak the philosophy, but to back up the statements by Vedic scriptural evidence. We saw when Srila Prabhupada would give a class, quoted a lot of verses in every one of his classes, just to establish the principles in an absolute way, that this is what it says in the Shastra. And Shastra is the word of Krishna, so that actually, what we say, consummates that knowledge as being, without a doubt, an absolute principle. And then, of course, the spiritual master also has to know how to take that knowledge and explain it according to Kala Desha Patra, time, place, and personality. Time, person. That's one of this is what this verse is really about. And then, what else? What is another qualification of a spiritual master? Comes in disciplic succession. He just doesn't pop up and say, I'm a guru, with no connection to anything before. There's many who surreptitiously or pretentiously just adopt the role of guru. They have no connection with anything before that. There's no disciplic succession, they don't even have a guru. Sometimes they say, I was enlightened by a dream, and now I understand who I am. So now you should follow me because I'm self-realized. There are many like that. So there are 4 sampradayas. And outside of these 4 sampradayas, it says there is no authorized form of transcendental knowledge that can be transmitted to the point of realization of the nature of the absolute truth. Krishna, either as in his principle or in his manifestations of Krishna in Vaikuntha, such as Narayan, Vishnu, and all of the categories within those, and then Krishna in Vrindavan, like that. And so that's the goal, either to realize Krishna in the Vaikuntha realm or to realize Krishna in the Vrindavan realm. And for us, it's the Vrindavan realm, because we are, what we say, Rupanugas. Rupa Goswami followed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught the path, the marg, the Vrindavan marg. That's the path to Vrindavan. So the spiritual master has to have a spiritual master who also has a spiritual master, coming in line all the way from Krishna. So there's 4 authorized sampradayas. We are in the Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya. Madhvacharya is also part of our sampradaya, but we mainly follow Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya, Brahma Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya. So the spiritual master has to come in line like that. The spiritual master doesn't have a job, Hare Krishna, where he makes some money on the side and does a little guru work once in a while. He has something to do. So his main and only activity is to enlighten the conditioned souls towards Krishna in devotional service. So he focuses at 100%. That's his main thing. Spiritual master is, it's mentioned in the Shastras, especially if you read the first chapter of the Adi Leela. There's a lot about guru. What is a guru? Different types of gurus. And their guru manifests himself in three forms. There is Shiksha Guru, Diksha Guru, and what is that other one that brings you to the path of Bhakti? I can never remember that one. Pavarma Darshana Guru. So that's the first guru you come in contact with, the person who connects you with the process of bhakti. It's also a guru. For instance, in the Shastras, we have the example of Dhruva Maharaj. Before he met his spiritual master Narada Muni, his mother was his Hare Krishna. What his what? Vardma Pradarshana Guru. If I can get that, I will be a complete guru then. I can't never remember that word for something. It's the guru that connects you with the process of bhakti. So in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, it was his mother. She was his, the word you just said, Vardmana Pradarshana Guru. Okay, close. Sorry, even Prabhupada made mistakes. He forgot verses, or he even quoted a verse a little differently. So these are not disqualifications for a spiritual master. His qualifications is he's able to become Krishna, he's Krishna conscious, and he helps others to become Krishna. That's his main qualification. So in the Shastras it mentions that there is Siksha and Diksha Guru. Now, Siksha and Diksha are almost the same but slightly different in purpose. Shiksha means one who gives relevant knowledge, and Diksha means one who connects you with the parampara system coming from the sampradaya. When you get initiated, you're connected, now you're part of that sampradaya, the lineage of so many great souls coming in disciplic succession. And then there is, now Diksha can also be Shiksha. But then sometimes we have the example in our own tradition where we have Bhakti Vinod Thakur. So his Diksha Guru was Hari Bilal, what was his name? Bipin Bilal. Bipin Bilal, yeah. But his actual guru was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. So you'll see that the disciplic succession is not necessarily Diksha. It's also a Shiksha line. You also see that with, Bhakti Vinod. Yeah, then there is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. Yeah, actually he was. So, but most of the time we find that Diksha and Shiksha are the same person. But in some cases it's not like that. Where one may take initiation, just like we see the example in our own society where someone wants to take a particular personality for a spiritual master, has given their heart to that spiritual master, is waiting for initiation, the guru somehow or other disappears from the planet. Now that person thinks, what am I going to do? But he can find, or she can find another person who he is inclined to take initiation for him. But that person is Shiksha. His real spiritual master is the one that disappeared, although he didn't take formal initiation. Because where you give your heart is the real initiation. The process of Diksha formalizes that connection. But actually, where you put your heart, in other words, if you give your heart to one particular spiritual master, taking guidance from him, but somehow you don't take the formal initiation, he's still your spiritual master, even though he may disappear. To consummate the whole thing, the formalization is there, but sometimes it's not, due to circumstance, it doesn't happen. And there's many examples like that, especially in our society. People come to me and say, I wanted this person, but I wasn't able to get it, and therefore what do? I say, well, find someone who you're inclined to, and that person will understand that he's not your Diksha Guru, but he's connecting you with the disciplic succession, so therefore he can be your Shiksha Guru, but your actual real Guru, which is also Shiksha, is the one that you gave your heart to, even though they're not personally present. That's how bhakti works. Bhakti is a heart program. It's not some formalization of ideas and rules and regulations. It's about giving your heart to Krishna, giving your heart to Krishna's representative. Giving your heart means giving your life. It's actually. So these are some of the characteristics of a spiritual master. The spiritual master, what are some of the other qualifications of the spiritual master? He doesn't come up with new ideas. Prabhupada used to say, whatever I'm giving, I'm saying the same thing as my spiritual master. I never added anything, I never took anything away, I never restructured everything. But he did understand the principles of the knowledge he received to apply it according to time, place, and candidate. Because what may work in India may not work in the West, and vice versa, like that. And you'll see even in the scriptures, there are things that apply mostly to India in terms of practice and cultural activities also connected with spiritual principles. But in the West, they're not there. So adaptation in relationship to the same principle without changing the point of philosophy or the practice itself. So we use the example. Women, we talked about this, women were not really giving the same status as men in India for worshiping in the temples. Women generally lived at home and they came to the temples. They also got initiated and they were mostly working underneath their husband. But in the West, that wouldn't work because Prabhupada said, I studied for at least a year. We heard from Shruta Kirti, he studied the culture of the Western society and he saw how much of there's intermingling between men and women. And he wasn't able to, he understood I cannot separate them and expect to get the results of teaching both groups like that. So he allowed women to have equal status within the temples in terms of service. The only few things that were different was certain things that were more or less relegated to, generally the women did the cooking, they also did many other services, and men did other, so it was divided by services, but then even now that's no longer there. Everyone is doing every kind of service now. There weren't any women temple presidents when I was around, at least for 20 or 30 years. Now we have at least a dozen women who are temple presidents, so that wasn't there. So it was a division of labor in the beginning, but now even that has been, because women have also shown that they can come up to that standard of responsibility and also do the same services, even in the role of preaching also. So Prabhupada was quite ingenious at understanding how to apply Krishna consciousness in diverse circumstances. Just like, for example, in the West, he really adopted Harinam Sankirtan. But in India, he didn't. Because he said in India, they will think we're just beggars on the streets. To some band of musicians looking for some dakshin. And they wouldn't take us seriously. So he didn't bring Harinam into India, but he did in the West in a very big way. In fact, every temple, every city we had a temple, Harinam was the main thing. Then after that, it became book distribution. So yeah, that's the job of a spiritual master, to see how to engage the disciples in such a way that they can make advancement in Krishna consciousness, and at the same time come up to the standard where they can also take charge of their spiritual life, and even without the presence of the spiritual master, they can continue to make advancement. When the spiritual master leaves, it's not that they go away or their spiritual life is somewhat less, less in quality. No. Then we have to hear, understand, clarify, question, and how to become Krishna consciousness, even if we're no longer in association with our spiritual master. Because we saw that in our ISKCON society, when Prabhupada disappeared, many devotees also left. They couldn't continue without Prabhupada. There was maybe more than one reason why they left. One is that they had so much attraction and attachment for Prabhupada. But they missed a real attraction, a real attachment, is Vakya. Because that's sustaining. Personal comes and goes. We should seek out getting the personal association of the spiritual master. But that is not the foundation for ultimate success in Krishna consciousness. The connection with the Vakya, or the words of the spiritual master, is sustaining. When Malati was serving Srila Prabhupada in India, Prabhupada had to leave her association and go somewhere else. Malati had developed such an affection and attraction for Prabhupada that she was somewhat unhappy, really unhappy that she wasn't with Prabhupada. So she expressed her unhappiness in a letter she wrote, and she was saying that, I'm feeling so much separation from you, it's very difficult for me to continue on. And Prabhupada said, he thanked her. He acknowledged her feelings, but then he went on to explain. He said, the spiritual master is not the body, but he's the principle of devotion for the disciple. So he said, you are chanting Hare Krishna, I am chanting Hare Krishna, we are together. In other words, if you're connected to the instructions of the spiritual masters, there's no question of separation like that. So that's the highest form of association, is through Vani. And Vani is eternal, whereas Vapu comes and goes, and also Vapu is a little dangerous also. You can go down in Vapu. If you commit an offense, or you somehow or other do something that is against the spiritual master or the process of bhakti, even Vapu may cause you to go down in your Krishna consciousness. But Vani is stable, Vani is eternal, Vani will never leave you. When Srila Prabhupada would always talk about himself, he said, I'm never separated from my spiritual master because I'm always thinking how to serve his mission. So that is the connection through the words. And of course, when the disciple makes the mission of the spiritual master their service, in other words, what is the mission of the spiritual master? Is to canvas and bring as many souls into Krishna consciousness as possible, and who disciples who assist the spiritual master. In that way, they become very, what we say, dear to Krishna. Everyone's dear to Krishna. The spiritual master sees all of his disciples equally, but there's those who, just like in the family, this is an analogy, you have so many children, and the father loves each of the children equally. But some children obey the father, some don't obey, and some don't really do anything to show their appreciation or their relationship with the father. But the ones who do, the father shows more attention, gives them more. His time, his energy, like that. So those who take up the mission of the spiritual master become they become recognized. I was listening to Prabhupada this morning. He was saying something really interesting. He said, if you take up preaching, and if you save one soul, just one soul, that is a great achievement. And Krishna will recognize you. And of course, Prabhupada didn't say it in this lecture, but he has said it before. And if that soul goes back to Godhead, because you made that person, you connected him to Krishna, you'll go back to Godhead automatically. So if you preach, you're in a good position to get special mercy. Yeah, because this is what the whole process is about. We're not simply satisfied by having whatever we have. We want to bring more and more souls into Krishna consciousness. That's why Krishna comes to the material world. That's the business of the spiritual master, to expand the society. And ultimately, we want the whole world. We can try, we'll see how much we can do. But Lord Chaitanya is there, and he wants the whole world. So he's on your side. He's going to help you if you make some effort to bring others into Krishna. And there's where the spiritual master really shows his mercy to the disciples who really, because to preach is really difficult. It's extremely difficult, especially in this age of Kali, where people are so much confused about the goal of life. And even if you give them the right knowledge, they can't understand it. It's very difficult. Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta, Gaur Govinda Maharaj used to say it all the time in his lecture, it takes 300 gallons of blood to make one disciple. Just one disciple. So that means there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. That's a rock and roll group, but forget about that one. Hare Krishna. To make one disciple, just to make one. So, but if we can make one who actually becomes perfect and achieves the goal of life and returns to the spiritual world, then your ticket to the spiritual world is already stamped, guaranteed, you're in. So that's how merciful the Lord is. That's how merciful he is. So we want to, and can you imagine if everybody in our society took up preaching, how fast this movement would spread? So fast. And the best way to take care of your own problems, whatever struggles you have to give some time to that. But when you start preaching, you'll find that most of your problems go away. Because your problem is that, what's your problem? Your problem is you're not preaching. Or in the sense that you're making too much emphasis on yourself. If you help others, Krishna will help you. As you help others, Krishna helps you. And you'll see how everything becomes nice. At least for yourself. To make others Krishna conscious, we mentioned, is difficult. Because this is the age of Kali. And people are mostly interested in two things: economic gain and sense gratification. So the spiritual master, And spiritual master is one, as we were talking again about the topic. There's only one spiritual master, but it takes myriads of forms. There are many forms of the spiritual master. Krishna is one, but Krishna manifests himself in so many forms. The spiritual master is many, but only one. So one who teaches on behalf of the Supreme Lord is spiritual master. In other words, they introduce the personality of Godhead. Many times you see spiritual masters or so-called spiritual masters. They talk about mantras, they talk about various types of philosophical teachings, but they don't talk about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They don't connect people with the ultimate goal. They just talk around it because they're more interested in getting followers and some prestige, and they want to be the center. But Prabhupada never talked about himself. Of course, he talked about himself just to inspire us in our devotional service, but he didn't do it as a way to put himself in the center. He always put Krishna in the center. You are a Krishna Das. A Krishna Das, that's your identity. And therefore, he's always teaching who you are, what is your relationship with Krishna, and who is Krishna. That's the spiritual master. And the spiritual master will never tell you to do something that is against the scriptures. If he does, he becomes what is he's no longer guru, he's guru. Guru means animal. So just like the four regulative principles. We saw that in certain situations, people were spiritual masters and they were trying to adjust these four regulative principles for whatever reason. There might have been certain reasons on a practical level or on a philosophical level, but the spiritual master follows his spiritual master, especially in the terms of the principles that guide us. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling. So the spiritual master says, well, you don't have to follow them. You can follow the ones that work for you. Then he's no longer guru. Because he's breaking the main part he's bringing you back to material consciousness again by allowing you to perform these activities which are foundational to get us away from material consciousness. These four regulative principles include all of the sinful activities that one can commit inside of those four principles. That's why those four principles are so important. And it says that if a disciple is not following the four regulative principles, he suffers, she suffers, and the guru also suffers. The guru has to take on the sinful reactions that his disciples undergo, and they claim to be devotees, but they're not following the principles. The spiritual master has to undergo some physical suffering, some mental suffering also. Prabhupada says, I have bad dreams due to my deviations of my disciples. So don't give your spiritual master any trouble. Hare Krishna. And I like, give me some good dreams. No bad dreams. Good dreams are about Krishna and devotional life. But it happens, and many times the spiritual master gets sick because the disciples are not following. That's just like one spiritual master, he was going to the doctor, and the doctor kept saying, you got so many physical problems, but they're not your problems. Where do they come from? Even the doctor could understand it. It was the karma that he was accepting from accepting others who, to take on karma is no problem, but when persons take initiation and then they break the principles, that's where spiritual master has to undergo some difficulty, and then of course the disciple separates themselves from the process of bhakti. If we don't chant, the spiritual master doesn't suffer, you suffer. But if you break the principles, both get the reactions. Yeah, so these principles are, we call them principles of knowledge, principles of freedom, principles of devotion. So always be very strict in following those principles. And Srila Prabhupada did say one time, he said, from the time of initiation, if you chant every day 16 rounds and follow those 4 regulative principles, your whole life, every day, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Just do that. Right? Didn't he say that? Sruta Kirti Prabhu? Yeah. That's Srila Prabhupada's mercy. That's his mercy. And because we're Prabhupada followers, we're Prabhupada Anugas, he's our Shiksha Guru. Therefore, if we do that from the time of initiation, every day, 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles, the whole life, and then you have achieved perfection. That's special mercy. That's not just shastric principles, that's special mercy. Okay, so these are some of the things that we can think about in terms of who is Guru, what are the activities of the Guru, what are the activities that are not of a Guru, one who is a Guru, who claims to be a Guru. So if we have some questions, comments, yes, we can start with Rishabh, and then Akarshani Radha, and then we have Krishna Kaviraj. Okay, in that order.
I have one technical question. Grihastha Gurus, they have jobs, Maharaj?
Grihastha, spiritual masters?
Yeah.
It says that the spiritual master's only duty is to engage in the activities of a spiritual master. I don't know. I don't know of any Grihastha spiritual masters who have jobs. There may be, but if they are, that means they're working against their own principles, because they're trying to get people out of the material world, but yet they're feeding the material world. The Guru is simply dependent on Krishna for whatever livelihood they need, within any ashram. So I don't know of any spiritual master in our society who has outside occupation.
And Maharaj, regarding you said if we all would preach, this mission would spread very fast, but I have 2 doubts about two kind of
Okay, don't take too many questions now.
Yes. If we all start to preach, the question is that we can only preach if we are empowered. The only one who can spread Krishna consciousness is one who is empowered by the Lord. And the second is, if we are not on a high level, we will just bring a lot of prakrita bhaktas, which can make a big disturbance in the society if we have a bunch of them.
Well, that's a broad range of ideas within that category. One, Prabhupada said, everyone should take the opportunity to repeat what they know to others. We might say that's teaching, preaching, reaching out. But to accept preaching as a full-time service, yes, then what you say is correct. But anyone at any time can enlighten and give spiritual nourishment to anyone at any time. You can always speak to someone. You can always talk about Krishna. But those who make preaching their full-time service, yes, then they must. Krishna Shakti Vihana He Tadbhavartanam. It means only those who are empowered by the Lord can actually do that service. But you can also become empowered. Empowerment is not limited to a certain group. certain classification. Also, one can become empowered. Okay? What's that?
Too many Kanishtas in the society is a problem.
Well, when you bring someone in, you don't bring them into the Madhyama platform. They're called neophyte devotees, new devotees, Kanista. So then the process is meant to elevate them. You don't leave them at that level. You guide them. You give them opportunities to make advancement. We say, come to learn, learn to serve.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. I had a question about when the disciple isn't following the four ranks and the Guru suffers. I thought that depending on the disciple's surrender to the Guru, that's how much the Guru will suffer, depending on what you're doing. Or does it, even if you're surrendering?
No, if you break the principles only.
So even if you're breaking the principles, but you're still can you still be surrendered if you're breaking the principles?
You're not surrendered if you're breaking the principles. Surrender means obedience. This disciple comes from the word discipline. So these are the principles of discipline. They discipline you away from the material energy and help situate you in the spiritual practice. So if you're doing service but you're breaking the principles, you're massaging the spiritual master and at the same time beating him on the head.
So in terms of the Guru's suffering, does surrender have any implication? Does it play any role?
Surrender is a moment-to-moment program. You could be surrendered now and 10 minutes later unsurrendered. And Bhaktisiddhanta makes that point. He says, initiation means constant focus on the activities of devotional service. And not, I'm initiated and that's all now, now I'm in. No. Now your process begins. So it's a moment-to-moment thing. One moment you could be Krishna conscious, and the next moment you could be, somewhere in downtown London, going shopping for things you shouldn't buy or don't need. So surrender is not just something that's a word, it's a means, it's a state of consciousness, surrender. Surrender simply means I give up what I like and I accept what the spiritual master and Krishna is asking me to do. That's all. That's what surrender means.
Is shopping bad?
Shopping bag?
Is it bad?
Huh?
Is shopping bad?
Is shopping
bad?
Shopping.
For some people it is.
For me?
We'll talk about that later. Not the time to go shopping now.
Very much. You said that
Nothing is bad, nothing is good. Some things are necessary and other things are unnecessary. So look at it from that point. What's necessary and what's unnecessary. Yes, Krishna Das.
Very much. You said that the spiritual master is the principle of devotion. Can you explain what you meant by that?
Yeah. He's not the body. he has a body, but that's not, the spiritual master is not defined by the body. He's defined by the principle that he gives. What is he giving? The principle of engaging the conditioned souls in the service of the Supreme Lord. That's his service. So, yeah, Prabhupada made that statement. When Malati asked him, Prabhupada said, the spiritual master is not the body, he's the principle of devotion. So, therefore, if you're connected with the principle of devotion, you're connected with the spiritual master. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Rishabhanu. Anyone else after him? We have, yes, we have Amritanam, and we also have Parijata. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Firstly, although as a process of initiation, I've done Guru-disciple course, which most of people do, but still there is amazing learning from you today.
Amazing for?
Amazing knowledge and learning process that has come through this class. My question relates to something I have read, that the relationship between disciple and guru is eternal. And I'm fortunate to be under your shelter. My mind is puzzled about the connection before initiation, and say with my age.
It becomes eternal, just like the deity. The deity is eternal, but the deity becomes eternal when the worship starts. Although the deity is eternal, before the worship starts, it's not categorized that way. As soon as the connection is made, the eternal principle is there.
So, Guru Maharaj, was there a connection before initiation?
Well, aspiring is also building that connection, but it comes formalized at initiation.
And say, with my age, nobody knows what's happening next day. So I leave the body. How does this connection continue?
Well, you're going to go somewhere. So when you leave the body, you just pick up your devotional service wherever you end up in your next body.
And with that connection between the Guru, which is yourself, and my body that continues remain?
Don't worry, we're connected. Don't worry about all of these details. You're not going to figure it out anyway.
No, it's made my mind and heart clear. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
The connection is service.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, you talked about regulative principles today, and the day before, you mentioned about a subtle form of no gambling, which is no mental speculation and no frivolous sports. So I
Frivolous sport. Prabhupada talked about mental speculation as being gambling, but it's written in the Shastras, frivolous sports. That's there. That's in Bhagavatam.
So my question is, Guru Maharaj, what are the subtle forms of other three regulative principles?
The subtle forms of illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling. The subtle forms of illicit sex. I know the subtle forms of sex desire, Just like if you give up sex desire and you don't perform on the gross level, still the subtle aspects of that contamination exist in the form of profit, adoration, distinction.
Profit?
Personal profit, adoration, you want to be adored by others, and you want to be noticed by others. This is called subtle sex desire. And if you don't get rid of the subtle sex desire, and it stays for some time, it also could re-manifest in the form of the physical or the gross. Just like the example is given, if you have a weed growing up out of the ground and you cut it at the level of the ground, you say the weed is cut, but actually the root still is in the ground. So unless you pull out the root, the weed will grow back. So these subtle desires, which if they're not removed in due course of time, can again come back in the form of the gross activities again. Yeah. So therefore, that's why devotional service works first on the gross level, and then it starts to go deeper into the more subtle aspects of our material contamination. That's why it sees the devotees say, well, I've been chanting for 30, 40 years. Just like I'll give you an example. One very elevated, long-term devotee, 57 years in the movement, sannyasi most of that time, just within the last year went back to gross sex desire. One of the first persons to join in our movement from the very beginning. Very, what we say, heavy preacher, very strong preacher, loved to do kirtan. All of a sudden now he's back in the material world again. Enjoying, or not enjoying, but engaging in illicit sex. So because those subtle desires weren't destroyed.
And Guru Maharaj, when you talk about meditating, is it like just direct? It's the direct message or any side of that?
The subtle aspect of meat eating? I never heard anything about the subtle form of meat eating. Maybe, I don't know, nothing? No. Shruta Kirti says no also. Meat eating is what it is. Prabhupada was talking today, I was listening, Prabhupada said, he said many years ago in all of the Hindu houses, if you wanted to eat meat, you couldn't cook in your house. Nobody would allow meat. You'd have to go to a hotel to get meat. So meat, Prabhupada said, if you go back to meat eating, you fall way down. You don't fall as far as when you go to illicit sex and intoxication. You fall farther when you go back to meat eating. I mean, that's abominable.
Is it possible, Maharaj, that it's like if we have traces, it's like the things we are taking has traces of, cow? Is it possible?
Here, what happened one time, Prabhupada, they made cookies for Srila Prabhupada that were shaped out of cow, that were shaped in a cow. And they gave it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada said, what is this? You want me to eat the cow? It was a cookie shaped as a cow. Prabhupada wouldn't eat it. All it was a cookie, but it had the shape of a cow.
And maybe like sometimes medicine capsules are made of cow substance and bones or something like that.
Stay away from that medicine.
So this is like subtle, I would say.
Not subtle, stupid. Nothing subtle about that. That's as gross as you can get. Look, we have Parijata. Okay? I don't think each one of those four regs have a subtle aspect, but I know illicit sex does.
I think intoxication is the one you always...
Prabhupada said that you're all intoxicated because you're thinking you're this body. That's a form of intoxication. So get rid of that one.
You always say not to watch TV. I think that's a part of it.
No, not to what?
TV.
TV. What do you see on TV?
Yeah.
The four regular principles are being broken on TV. And you say, well, I'm just watching, I'm not... Hare Krishna. You're a rascal, that's all. First class rascal.
Hare Krishna. My question is regarding the effect, that the bad effect or the consequences that Guru receives if, in case any principle is broken. So sometimes I've seen in the movement some people, they don't chant and they are drinking heavy duty coffee and tea. And I asked one of the people that, why are you doing this? He said, I can't function without coffee, and it's okay because my spiritual master has allowed me. And I said, why don't you chant? Because I don't have the time to do so. I have asked, and my spiritual master says that's okay. So what happens when a spiritual master gives this kind of discount? And maybe there are other things. So the consequences, is he like...
Is he an ISKCON spiritual master? Haribo.
Haribo.
That's all I got to say.
So the consequences is like, if the Guru allows it, it's okay.
I wouldn't allow it. That's all I can say.
That's amazing.
So it's not okay with me. Can you put something up on the board? 994, Bhagavatam. I think it's 994. I might be wrong, but I think it is.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Shruta Prabhu. Give him the microphone.
Talking about the Guru having a job, and it made me think of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. We know one of his services was as a magistrate. So where would that fall in? I mean, he's all our Param Guru.
Was he a guru at that time?
That I don't know. Yeah, that's why I'm asking you.
It seems like that was part of his early life as a magistrate. Because he was actually active in that job.
Yeah. But he does show on his scheduling, translating books and reading books and chanting and magistrate. So it was all there at the same time, at least in his schedule.
I wouldn't want to judge that.
No, I wouldn't either. It was just a curiosity because
Well, that's a point.
He did that service.
But I don't think we should follow that as a standard either.
No, that's...
Yeah, because what kind of job are we going to get?
McDonald's.
Yeah. Or open up a grocery store and sell cigarettes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. Not with gurus, I don't believe. Maybe they're disciples.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's see. No, it's not. Was that 994? Or maybe it's 944. I just quickly, is that 994? Is that the same one? What's 994?
That was 994.
Well, in one particular verse, I thought it was 994 that Prabhupada talks about himself having bad dreams. This is it, yeah, is this 994? It's not in the translation, it's in the purport, so we can't find it through the translation. I'd have to do a recheck on my notes on that one. Try 9, 4, and 4.
8, 4, 15.
Huh?
8, 4, 15. Gajendra returns to the
8,
spirit.
4, 15. Go ahead.
15.
There's two of them. One's in the 8th canto, one's in the 9th canto. 8, 4, 15. Srimad Bhagavatam 8, 4, 15. It's interesting because okay, who else had a question? And we have 3 more questions. Give it to this lady. She doesn't get a chance so often.
Hare Krishna. Guru Maharaj, you mentioned that if someone is aspiring for initiation, but the Guru Maharaj disappears from the planet. And,
If they've actually given their heart to that guru. Yeah, I've been involved with that directly with certain disciples. They come to me and say what to do. I also had a disciple who was aspiring for me, and then she started to do service for this spiritual master who was dying. She developed such an affection and attraction for them that she didn't tell me. Then when she left, she was confused. When he left, she was confused. So she went to another spiritual master, took initiation, and he told me that he's not her spiritual master, it's the one that left. And that was Giriraj Swami who gave her initiation. But she had given her heart to Sridhar Swami. When he was dying in Mayapur, she took care of him. And so he told me, Giriraj Swami told me, her spiritual master, Sridhar Swami. And I accepted it because, she dedicated herself. Yeah. So sometimes that happens. There's other cases also in our movement.
in that case, what is the mood of the disciple with the new initiated Guru?
The mood? They should serve that spiritual master as a representative of their spiritual master. Shiksha and Diksha are one and the same. So that spiritual master connected them to the Parampara system. That consummates their standard as being a bona fide disciple within the society. But now they have to serve that spiritual master as if they were serving their spiritual master, the one that left. Same way. So when you choose someone who is there because you needed someone, you should choose also one that you can surrender to. Yeah. Well, go down the page, let's see. Is that 8:4:15? Is that it? Let's see. Go down to the translation. Let's see here.
Translation.
Yeah. Okay, purport. It's in the purport, right?
Yes.
What part of the purport?
Latter part.
Later.
Because of sinful activities of night, we have bad dreams, which are troublesome. Indeed, Maharaj Yudhisthira was obliged to see hell because of the deviation from devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, bad dreams occur because of sinful activity. A devotee sometimes accepts a sinful person as his disciple, and to counteract the sinful reaction he accepts from the disciple, he has to see a bad dream. Nevertheless, the spiritual master is so kind that in spite of having bad dreams due to a sinful disciple, he accepts this troublesome business for the deliverance of the victims of Kali Yuga. After initiation, therefore, disciples should be extremely careful not to commit any sinful activities that may cause difficulty for himself and the spiritual master. Before the deity, fire, spiritual master, Vaishnava, the honest disciple promises to refrain from sinful activity. Therefore, you must not commit sinful acts and thus create troublesome situations. Okay, just to confirm what I said, just to make sure you didn't think I made it up. Okay. Yes, Sri Advaita? Well, Ekachaka, you also have a question? Okay. Ooh, we're running late, huh? All right. So maybe Shruta Kirti Prabhu, if you want, you can go over a little bit on your class. You can go over time. If you want to.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for your wonderful class. Maharaj, we see in our society a lot of disciples after initiation are not able to keep up their vows. And
that means they shouldn't have taken us to spiritual master in the first place. Mm-hmm. If you promise and then you don't do it, why would you take a spiritual master and then do something different?
What usually happens is that in the initial years of initiation, you're quite fired up, and then what happens is afterwards, the impressions of the previous,
yeah, that happens, but that firing up is just some emotional outburst. You have to be guided by intelligence, not by situations or emotions. Prabhupada spoke really strongly about this, but he also said, better to give up your life than give up your vow. But then he said, don't do that. But what he was saying, he wanted to show the importance of keeping one's vow and how a sincere disciple will, under any circumstance, not break their promises at initiation. They'll accept some suffering if they have to, but not break their vows. That's a sincere disciple. One who breaks is not sincere. Well, that's a whole nother story. That's a separate class. Okay, we're going to do one quick question for Rekha Chakra. She's so patient. She's been waiting the whole class to get a chance to say something.
Hi, Krishna Maharaj. You spoke a lot about the disciple and what the disciple should do and in serving and assisting the spiritual master in their mission. From your observation and experience of your disciples, what would you like to say to us about how we can better serve you?
Quit your job. Hey, well, get into full-time devotional service. You asked for it. If you can't do it, it's not an instruction. It's what I would like you to see do. There's instructions, there's advice, and there's opinion. This is more like good advice. So, yeah. Because I, along with many other spiritual masters, see that why are we working for this secular society? We're trying to get out of it, but we're feeding back into it. We're supporting something that is actually contrary to what we believe. And we're depending on them for what we need. Why don't we depend on Krishna? And depend on the process of service to Krishna. Bhakti True Maharaj was really strong about this. I don't think devotees should work for the secular society. I think we can start our own self-sufficient communities. Which Prabhupada had said from the first day he began preaching in America back in the 1960s. He didn't start to say that. He emphasized it later, but he said it from the very beginning. He said farm communities, book distribution, 2 solid programs. If you put energy into that, you'll get success. Yeah. And the way the world is now, it's falling apart. And there's such crisis out there. Economic crisis, social crisis, political crisis, so many crises. And Prabhupada predicted the fall of Western society, and we're seeing it right now. It's pretty bad out there. And people are scrambling, honest people are scrambling to figure out how to survive what's going on. But we know how to survive. We have everything. We just have to put it together in an environment.
You just have to unite and do it, Guru Maharaj.
Hmm?
You just have to unite and do it.
Even if you do it in an urban environment, that's fine also. But you somehow or other get away from dependence and support of the secular society. It's demeaning, destroys our children. Children, we send them to the schools, they come back with all kinds of bad habits. Then the parents have to go crazy trying to bring their kids back to the standard. Yeah.
I'm seeing that, Guru Maharaj.
That book, Krishna's Way, is about that. You read it? Not yet? Okay. It's for you, it's free. Okay. So yeah. Hare Krishna. All right, we should stop now. Instead of taking a 15-minute break, take a 10-minute break and come back by 11:35.